your two hosts, Carlos and Dylan.
Hey, what's up, Dylan? How you doing today, buddy?
I'm good. Excited to be here.
Another sour note as we recap another loss for the Gators. What were your observations from that game? Because it didn't look good from the very beginning.
Yeah, I mean, there wasn't too many good things to take away from that game. Really ugly game. Probably the ugliest that I've seen in a while, especially just considering Kentucky's not a very good football team either. They are not a good football team, and Florida is more talented. So tough game. I think it really just came down to being sloppy with the football. You know, at the start of the game, obviously, DJ Lagway's 3 interceptions was really tough, but also the Katie Daniels fumble when you're driving, you're having a good drive. And then, you know, defense was surprisingly not very good. I thought Kentucky did a great job at, you know, getting guys open. There was a guy open every play. It felt like they were wide open. So just all around, there was nothing really that you can look at in that game and say that was a bright spot. I mean, maybe you could say Jaden Ball just because, you know, he continues to be a great player, which we kind of expect. But even then, the run blocking in that game was awful. It felt like every time, you know, you tried to hand it to Jaden Ball, there was 6 defenders around him and no blocking to be found. So really just a bad game. I think the worst so far we've seen this year, even though, you know, considering when we lost to USF, I think they looked better against USF. It was sloppy as well,
Yeah.
but this was the worst game of the year. So not much to take away other than just a bad loss. And you'll have these when your season's basically done and you're with an interim head coach.
Do you feel like the team is starting to quit?
Yeah, that's tough to say. I think, you know, that's what everyone kind of goes to is, oh, we got beat by a bad Kentucky team. Like that must mean everyone's quitting. I wouldn't say the team's quitting. I didn't think that, you know, there's been times where I've watched Gators football and there's been low effort plays and there's been times where I'm like they're not playing as hard as they should be. I didn't think that against Kentucky. I don't really know what happened. You know, it was just not a good game. It was not their day. It was a really bad game, but I wouldn't say they're quitting. I mean, I know Billy Gonzalez mentioned it on Monday in the press conference, said they went back and looked at every play to make sure, you know, they were checking that everyone was playing hard, no one was quitting, and he said they didn't see anyone quit either. So, I've mentioned it before. I don't think this group is one to just quit. There's the circumstance obviously gives them a chance to quit. I think, you know, right now it's hard not to quit when your season's over. There's not much to play for, but at the end of the day, you know, they mentioned it a lot. You're playing for more than just a season. You're playing for, you know, the scouts. Scouts are going to watch every game of you. They're going to watch every clip. It's not going to just be, oh, when you guys were good, what were you doing? It's going to be every clip. You're playing for the scouts. You're playing for, you know, your future. I mean, now they're getting paid by NIL. Even if you plan on staying at the University of Florida, you're playing to get a raise. Maybe you're playing to, you know, get paid. So I don't think we're going to see anyone quit. I don't think we did. I think it was just a really tough game.
Is DJ just going through the motions? Because finally Billy did what I was asking for game 2.
Yeah, I mean, it's getting harder and harder to defend DJ Lagway. I think this was a really bad game for him, even, you know, and there was times where he missed open receivers. There was times where he threw, you know, questionable interceptions. It was really bad. I don't know if he's just going through the motions. I don't know what it is. I don't know if it's a loss of confidence. Obviously there's some footwork concerns. Obviously there's,
yes, he's hopping a lot.
Yeah,
he's hopping a lot when he goes back, and he's overthrowing people.
Yeah, I think it's really just this season has been a complete failure for DJ Lagway, and it's not all on DJ Lagway. I think a lot of it is he's been failed, but you know, at the end of the day, this season is one to forget for him. I think, you know, he's gonna play out the rest of the year, hopefully, and I think it would be good to get him playing time, but I think a full off season of being healthy under a new system. Hopefully we get in a coach that can. Hopefully he's here next year and we get in a coach that can, you know, help him get back on track. I think that would be really helpful because it's clear he's not himself from last year, and it's clear that, this year is just a complete failure. I don't think there's any, fixing DJ Lagway in the season. I think that's going to be an off-season thing.
Again, who would you blame? Is it 50% DJ Lagway, 50% the coaching staff, or is it just he's been injured too much?
Yeah, I don't think you can really blame anyone. I mean, quarterback play in college football at the next level, it's hard. And I mean, it gets harder in the NFL. And every year you see quarterbacks getting failed in the NFL. You see quarterbacks failing in college. I think it's hard to blame one person. I think, fans will find it easy to blame the staff because quite frankly, he regressed since he was a freshman, and everyone kind of knew that last year he was playing just backyard football. He wasn't really, going through his reads as much as he was just, playing like a freshman would, didn't know too much of the playbook. And, it's shocking that he comes out now and he knows more of the playbook and he's been coached more and he's worse. So I think it's easy to blame the staff. I don't know how much of it is the staff. I don't know how much of it is the injury. I don't know how much of it is just, Lagway kind of not taking that step. Also, sophomore slumps, we hear about it all the time.
Yes.
So yes. I think it's a lot of things. I think you can't blame anyone in particular, even though we might want to. But I think, the hope is, like I said, he gets a full offseason, and I'll take 100% blame too. I even wrote an article in the offseason mentioning that, maybe he doesn't need too much work and it's fine that he's injured because he's still getting a lot of the processing practice that he needs. And, that was clearly not the case. He came out and proved me pretty wrong there. So I think you just got to hope that he can get a full off season, stay healthy, work on his craft, and we see a turnaround next year in the orange and blue. Let's hope.
Is Tank Hawkins the first domino to fall in terms of opt-outs, a sign that he could be jetting somewhere else?
Yeah, I don't know. I wouldn't say all of that. I think Tank, in particular, he was kind of someone that we always thought could, be looking for a new home just because he hasn't played much. I'll be the captain of the Tank Hawkins fan page. I love him.
I love him myself.
I think he's a good football player. I think, we were close to seeing a huge play from him against Georgia. He was wide open. Lagway just missed him. I think his speed is exceptional, but he hasn't played a lot. He hasn't been used a lot. Last year he blew his red shirt, even though he hardly played. I know he was on special teams here and there, but he blew his red shirt. So, I hope he's not leaving. I think he's a great football player, but I think even if he didn't, ask for this red shirt, it was a possibility with the way that he's been used and the way that he's not seeing playing time. And, I think the other hope is the season's lost. I think everyone knows that the season is basically over. And if he's still not playing, now looking back, hindsight, it's a little tough because now Eugene Wilson's out for the year. That gives him a lot more opportunity that maybe he would have wanted to grab onto. But, if he wasn't playing a lot already, the season's lost, might as well just grab your red shirt. And that doesn't mean necessarily he's leaving. I think there's a shot he stays, depending on the coach, obviously. But as for, the dominoes, I don't think too many players are going to be doing this. I might be wrong, but I think, and Billy Gonzalez mentioned it, that's in their head already, the staff. They are purposely keeping some kids and keeping their red shirt, which obviously every program does. And why not? I'd rather they keep some eligibility for when we hopefully are competitive than in a season that's obviously failed. So I don't think too many people are going to be opting out. I think there's a couple guys that we won't see just because, might as well keep their red shirt. I think that's a smart thing to do, but I don't think, I don't think fans need to be worried about all these guys are going to sit out and just transfer. I don't think it's that simple. I don't think a lot of players here are done with the university itself. I think most of the transfers we'll see will probably be pushed out by the next coach, or will realize, I'm not going to get the opportunities that I need here. I don't think most of them are leaving because they want to go to a bigger program and all that. So we'll see. Obviously, a lot of time left for them to make that decision, but I'm not too worried.
Is Carson Baker the first domino of the 2026 class to probably throw a sign or a wrench that in the pregame of the Kentucky game, we were hyping up that the class hasn't fallen apart. But Carson on X posted he was at the Kentucky game. Kentucky is in the mix. He's got 5 schools in the mix. Is Carson Baker the first domino to create the cracks in the 2026 class?
Yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that just because recruits are going to post, they're going to post a bunch of stuff. I mean, even I think today, maybe yesterday, he posted on his Instagram story a picture of him on his visit to UF. They're gonna post their pictures. It was a bad time for him to post that, and obviously it was a little bit of a.
I had to ask the question because I saw the post. And Gator Nation's gonna be like, what?
It was definitely a bad time to post that, and I think like we talked about, there's potential that players flip. I mean, he is one of my favorite commits in the class.
Yes,
I think he's super talented. And there's going to be teams that are going after him. I know FSU's been going after him hard. I know, Kentucky. But at the end of the day, it all just depends on the next coach. It all depends on, if he sees the vision. And, I don't want to come on here and dump on a program, but I don't think Kentucky's really this huge opportunity. You're jumping from Florida to Kentucky. You're not really saving yourself from a dumpster fire. I don't think Mark Stoops is long for that job, and
nope.
I don't think the grass is greener over there. So we'll see with him. We'll see with a bunch of guys. I think it really comes down to, can Florida sell them on the next coach, and can they build that relationship in time to keep them? I think Carson's recruitment will go down to the wire for sure, and I think he wants to be a Gator. There's a reason he's committed here, and it wasn't just Napier. So I think it will come down to the wire for sure. But I wouldn't read too much into these posts because kids are gonna post. It's the same as Lane Kiffin posting.
Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's meaningless. It's trolling. You're never gonna really understand it until the pen hits the paper, and even then, you never know. So I'm not too worried, but he could definitely. There's a world where he ends up somewhere else, and I don't want to live in that world because he's a great recruit.
Did Kentucky beat the Gators, or did the Gators beat themselves?
Yeah, that's a tough one. I think in this sense, I got to give it to Kentucky. I think Kentucky beat the Gators. It felt like. There's games like even Georgia. I felt like the Gators had a chance to win that game, and they kind of didn't, grab the opportunities that they could. I would say the USF game, the Gators beat themselves more than anything. This game kind of just felt like Kentucky was there to play, and Florida wasn't. It felt like Kentucky was ready for our defensive scheme. I mean, they had so many guys open all the time. They had no problems with that. It felt like they were just energized, whereas the Gators, I don't know if it was the road environment. I don't know if it was the early mistakes, but we just weren't ready. So I'll give credit to Kentucky. I think they beat us more than we beat ourselves. But like I mentioned, Florida was the more talented team. I think, there was a lot of mistakes that they made that let Kentucky run away with it. So at the end of the day, it's a tough game. I don't think any of us will go back and rewatch that game in the future. I think that's one of those ones where you forget it happened completely.
Exactly.
But you got to give Kentucky credit. I mean, they look like a good football team as much as they could for a team that I think now they have 4 wins on the season. So, it was a tough game for Florida.
Do you expect any other players to maybe opt out? Maybe TJ? Maybe other freshmen that have not played? TJ, because he's already played in 3 games, I believe, if I'm not mistaken.
You're talking about Trammell, right? Trammell Jones?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. I thought you were talking about TJ Abrams for a second. But
no,
Trammell,
not TJ Abrams.
we talked to I think our good friend Cam Parker asked that question to Billy Gonzalez about Trammell, and I think Billy Gonzalez was pretty upfront about it. He said they're going to consider that for everyone, and they're talking to. It's not just the kids' decision. They're talking to the parents. They're talking to the coaches. They're talking to the kid. They're talking to they're consulting a lot of people when making this decision. I think it would be smart for them to redshirt Trammell. He's only played in 2 games for.
Oh, okay.
I believe. I mean, I know he played in.
I knew it was like 2 or 3, but I don't want to misquote myself.
I think it's been 2. So I think at the end of the day, there might be a time where it's like, do you want a redshirt or do you want to play? And that will be his decision. But it's a weird one. I think you probably want him to redshirt just to keep that eligibility, especially when you're sitting behind DJ Lagway. If Lagway comes back next year, he's going to be the starter unless we don't see improvement. And I don't think anyone's expecting TJ to be the starter next year unless they don't get a quarterback in the portal or unless DJ Lagway leaves. So I think you want him to redshirt just to extend his career a little bit. But I don't know. It's tough. I think I'm not expecting anyone. And Gonzalez mentioned a couple will, but I don't think it's going to be anyone that was expected to get a lot of playing time and all of a sudden we're lost without them. You know what I mean? I think it's going to be a lot of the freshmen that haven't gotten too much playing time and want to, save it for next year. So I don't think it's anything to worry about necessarily, if that makes sense.
Anything to read in the tea leaves that our ex-coach Billy Napier suddenly popped up at Athens this morning and is buddy with our rivals head coach, and was at practice this morning in Georgia.
Yeah. I'll give myself a little promotion here. Article dropping on that today.
I did that on purpose too, so you can do that.
Yeah, well, I appreciate you. I wrote something about it. I think when you dive into that relationship, they have a good relationship. I don't think Napier, Florida fans are gonna extend it and say, oh, like, he was a Georgia spy, or oh, he's all buddy with our rivals. That's why he lost to them a bunch. And it's not like that. Coaches more than likely have worked with each other. Once you get to the higher level, most of them, have ties to, especially Bama with Nick Saban. He always brought in a really good coaching staff. And they all have ties to each other. Napier and Smart were good friends. They've had a relationship for a while. I included in the article, Napier said that Smart actually basically saved his career in a way after Clemson. Smart gave him a little bit of a recommendation to Saban to come on at Bama, and that kind of turned his career back around. So they're good friends. I don't think it's anything, obviously fans are going to freak out. Obviously it's a bad look when it hasn't even been a month since you've been fired and you're over there at the biggest rival of your old school. So it's a bad look, but it's not anything too crazy. I know Smart mentioned it on the telepress conference today. I included that in the story. He basically just said, he was stopping by because they're friends. It wasn't, he's not getting hired or anything. So we'll see in the future. I'm sure Napier has a lot of options. He can go be a head coach at a smaller school, I'm sure, or he can take a job, at a program like Georgia and try to build up from there. I think that's definitely an opportunity in the future, considering their relationship, but we'll have to see with that. I don't think it's anything to freak out about, though.
Could it be that he just went to Georgia to do some self-evaluation and said, okay, I was too stubborn at Florida. I want to see what Kirby does at Georgia that maybe I could have done different at Florida. And when I get my next big opportunity, maybe I can do different, like hire an OC, et cetera, et cetera.
I would hope so, just for Billy Napier's sake, because I think a lot of people will agree. Some people won't, but a lot of people will agree that Napier's demise was really on himself. If he had just said, okay, listen, I'm a great CEO. I've brought in a great roster. let me, push off some work, give the OC, hire a really good OC. He hired a really good DC. Ron Roberts has been great. If he just hired, an OC that level, we might be talking about his tenure here a lot differently. So for his sake, I hope so. I hope he went over there and kind of, is doing a self-evaluation and realizing some stuff. And, you always want a guy to have a great career. You never want to prey on someone's downfall. So I hope so. Obviously, I would have loved for him to do that before, his tenure at Florida kind of went down in fire a little bit. It would have been nice because this roster is so talented, and he had a shot to do some special things here. As much as people hate him now, I think there was an opportunity for us to have a really special season this year. So, I think that would be the best case scenario for him. I hope he can do that. And as much as a lot of people won't like me saying this, I hope, he has a great career. I think he did a lot for the university, at least attempted to do a lot for the university. He built a great roster.
Person. Doesn't mean he's a good coach, but he's a good person, so he deserves well.
Yeah, exactly. And he wanted to win here. I mean, as much as it was a little stubbornness that stopped him from winning here, he wanted to win here. So I give him respect, and I hope he can become a better coach, as long as he's not doing it against the Florida Gators. I'll cheer for him if he's not facing the Florida Gators.
Exactly. In terms of the DJ benching, did Coach Billy G get into that in the Monday presser? And
yeah,
did he talk to DJ about it before he benched him? I did somewhat of a video and spoke about it, but I didn't really get into it because obviously I didn't know the full details. I did it based on an article you guys did because I use a lot of your articles on Gators SI.
Appreciate you. Yeah, he talked about it. He went in depth. He kind of mentioned, he told DJ, and this was the reasoning behind it. He said he compared it to a baseball pitcher in the MLB. He said sometimes you go out there and you don't have your stuff and you get pulled, and that's what it was. He didn't have his stuff today. He wasn't on today. And sometimes it's nice to just kind of get a break from that, sit down and look at what went wrong. So I don't think it was, a lot of the fan base wants DJ Lagway on the bench for good. I don't think it was that. I mean, he mentioned that he's going to take starting reps this week. I think he will be the starter going into the future, but
he already named him the starter at Mississippi. So
yeah. So I think it was more of just getting him off the field and letting him kind of breathe, look into what went wrong. And I don't think it was. I think Lagway understands that. I mean, every player is going to take it to heart when you get benched. I think that's really tough, especially when you're the quarterback of the Florida Gators. And I think that's a lot of the problem is just Lagway's kind of had everything on his shoulders since he was a freshman. I mean, he came in and it was like, all right, this is our guy. This is our next Tebow. He needs to save Billy Napier's job. And then this year, all right, Billy Napier has one more year. DJ Lagway is going to save him. This team goes as far as DJ Lagway. And I think there's been a lot of high expectations that he's kind of struggled to deal with. So, when you're pressing like that and then you throw 3 interceptions, I think it's nice to kind of get a little break and kind of the team tell you, like, it's not all on you. You know what I mean? It's not all on you. So I don't think it was too much of we're benching him for good because he's a bad player. I think it was more of just, take a little break, realize what's going on, and get back out there. So we'll see if he bounces back against Mississippi State. It's going to be, Ole Miss. I don't know why I said Mississippi State. It's going to be a tough game, though. It's going to be, that's a tough opponent. So we'll have to see. But I think, I've mentioned he's a talented quarterback. I'm still on the DJ Lagway train, and I'm hoping that he can find some success before the end of the year.
Have you guys been able to ask coaches or Billy Napier or Billy G now that he's in charge? Is DJ having issues also reading defenses? I know football's not easy, but there's been questions or comments in the internet saying that he might not understand or necessarily know how to read defenses and tries to just go to his number one option all the time?
Yeah, I mean, we haven't talked about it much. Obviously, if you ask the coaching staff that, they're not going to give you a
A
clear,
straight answer.
answer on that. And I
Yeah.
don't think there is a straight answer, really. I think, like you said, football's hard. There's going to be a lot of problems. I'm sure. I mean, this guy's a true sophomore in college who missed a lot of the year, missed a lot of these reps of reading defenses. I'm sure that's a struggle for him. But I don't think that's the whole problem. I think there's a lot of problems, and I think, they're fixable. And like I said, I hope he fixes them this offseason, but I'm sure that's a problem. But I don't think, fans they really want it to just be one thing. Oh, okay, he can't read defenses, so we're done with him. He'll never learn to read defenses, whatever. It's not that. And the good thing about DJ Lagway, for those that are not overreacting, is you can learn to read defenses. You can, with time, that comes. I think sometimes we get scared of the ARs of the world where it's like, oh, he has so much potential, but it never clicked. And that happens. But there's also times where it does click for quarterbacks and you see them get better. And so I think, there's a lot of freaking out about DJ Lagway, and there's a lot of pointing to one exact factor that's, causing everything. But I think it's a couple things, and I think they're fixable. We'll see in the future, but I do believe that reading defenses is a little bit of a problem for him.
Do you believe that our potential next head coach, Lane Kiffin, really believes we have the talent to win here? Or is he just overhyping the talent here because it's Mississippi week? Because last week he decided to troll DJ and the Florida fan base on his benching.
Yeah. I think it's tough with coach speak. I think every week a coach is going to come out and say, oh, this team's really good, even if they're not.
Yes.
That being said, I've mentioned I think this team's super talented. I don't think there's a soul that, other than fans that just don't want to see it, Georgia fans, I'm sure, Miami fans. Yes. Most people that understand football know that we have talent in this locker room. They know that we're a talented team. So I'm sure he believes that. If he does end up being our head coach, I'm pretty sure that will be part of it is, I can go over here with this nicely built roster. All I have to do is keep some key guys and I'm good, So I don't think he was trolling with that. I think he does a lot of trolling, and it's hard with him. And I think Florida fans love the idea of him now, but there's a world where he comes here and they hate him because he trolls so much. And,
yes, he does.
You lose one game at the University of Florida and you're trolling and the fans are going to crash out. So I think they love the idea of Lane Kiffin more than actually having Lane Kiffin here. Not saying I love the idea of Lane Kiffin, and I'm prepared if he is here for all the trolling. I'll take that. But I think some fans are not ready for that. But, at the end of the day, I think we have a talented roster. I think anyone in the football world can see that. And I think there was some truth to it, even if, obviously he has to say that because every coach says that ever about every roster.
Is there potential, if he's our next head coach, that he will bring one of the QBs from Mississippi and tell DJ, kick rocks?
Yeah, there's a potential for that. I think that will be one of the harder decisions to make, and we'll see how that goes. Obviously, there's a lot that goes into even him getting here before we can worry about who's the quarterback. But I mean, obviously, the name that comes to mind is Austin Simmons, who was committed here until he trolled us, took him from us, and he infamously put the "Won't Back Down" song on his Twitter. So I think, Austin Simmons is a name that I'd watch if he does end up here. But at the end of the day, you'll just have to see. We'll have to wait and see. I think he can do great things with DJ Lagway if he decides to come here. But at the end of the day, there's multitude of factors. Does DJ Lagway want to be here? Does he want a new start? Does Lane want him here? Does he fit in the offense? All this stuff, which I think he does fit in the offense. But there's a lot of stuff that goes into it. So I'm more worried about if he's going to end up here and then I'll worry about who's my next quarterback. But I have full confidence that Lane will find someone. I mean, he just pulled Trinidad Chandless out of D2, and that guy's a stud. So I'm not too worried about Lane finding us a quarterback if he ends up being the coach here.
Guys, some of these questions I have to ask just for the internet purposes. It's not that I think it. It's what I see on the internet. And he's one of my insiders besides being a friend. So I've got to ask him those questions. I'm not trying to troll you guys, but trust me, if he comes here, our shows are going to – there's a lot of questions and a lot of trolling that he'll do that I'm going to interject into our shows because he loves to do that.
Definitely.
So, guys, this is it. We don't really have much to say about the stinker against Kentucky. Follow my buddy at Dylan Olive _UF, and follow him on Gators SI. Follow him on follow Cam Parker. Follow Tyler. Follow Kyle. Follow Sam Semajovitz. If I murdered your last name, I apologize. But follow all the Gators SI crew. Also, guys, if you can't watch us on YouTube, you can also follow us on Amazon Music, Apple Music, iHeartRadio. The shows are going to be slowly being uploaded to all the platforms as quickly as possible, because I've done over 100 videos on YouTube. But the audio is going to be available for you to listen to that. And we'll get back to you guys with the pregame show for Ole Miss this coming Saturday at 10 a.m. And as always, stay positive, stay on your grind, and go Gators.